Man, I was going through one of the darkest days of my life, and it's 2015. Everything changed sort of overnight.
And I heard Keegan and Carly talking, and I was like, hey, what do you got going on? He's like, oh, I have to lead chapel tomorrow. So they bring out this dish, and I have pictures of it, I have to dig it up, but they bring out this dish, and it's like staring at us like this, and we're all looking at each other like, who's gonna eat that? The Leave Your Legacy show is brought to you by Brave Hearts TV. Brave Hearts TV is dedicated to bringing stories of resilience, courage, and hope to their viewers. Their mission, to inspire, uplift, and empower their audience by highlighting real-life heroes and their journeys. In partnership with Brave Hearts for Kids, you, the viewers, become catalysts for saving the lives of children facing pediatric cancer. You can start by simply downloading their network app on Roku or Amazon Fire TV. Please visit braveheartstv.org. Iowa Sports Supply. Iowa Sports Supply in Cedar Falls, Iowa has all of your school sporting goods and corporate business apparel needs. Anything from jerseys, sports equipment, to online fan apparel stores. Remember to check out their website at iowasports.com or give them a call at 319-268-0125 and ask for Alex. Elevate with Robin. Elevate with Robin is a full-service brand marketing agency that specializes in developing purpose-driven brand identities. Elevate with Robin has the right blend of strategic thinking, creative courage, and commitment to elevate your brand with every interaction. Their mission? To empower brands to rise above their competition by creating powerful brand identities that resonate with their target audience. Visit elevatewithrobin.com. Hello and welcome to the Leave Your Legacy show. I'm your host, Kenyon Murray, and today we have a very special guest. Third time on the show. I think he and my wife are the only people to grace the show that many times. Let's take a look.
Jordan Montgomery, owner of Montgomery Companies, is a highly regarded performance coach and keynote speaker whose clients include business executives, sales organizations, and entrepreneurs. From small-town Iowa to a dominant force in the performance coaching industry, Jordan travels the country, speaking on the main stage for dozens of Fortune 500 companies. He is also known for his continued work with championship sports teams across the country. In addition to his work speaking and coaching, Jordan is an accomplished business leader who has managed top-performing sales teams in the financial services industry. Jordan resides in Tiffin, Iowa, with his wife Ashley and his 4 children, Audrey, Claire, Olivia, and McCoy.
Help me in welcoming Jordan Montgomery to the Leave Your Legacy show. Thanks for joining us today.
Good to be with you, man. Always.
Yeah,
Third time.
Third time. I know. I was like, you and Michelle are probably the ones that have graced the show the most. So
I'm in company with royalty. Michelle Murray.
You know, I think it may be something of how much I care and how I feel about you too coming on the show. Because but every time has been a little bit different, right? And so today we're definitely going to touch on some different things because you've got a lot going on. Both personally and professionally, but I think the professional things you have going on are pretty good. And so you are now the 4th guest that I've had who has written a book or in the process of writing a book. So I've had Alan Stein, David Nurse, and Thomas Williams, all friends of yours and mine. So, you know, I know they're a big part of your life. So tell me what those 3 relationships mean to you, not only as friends, but also as professional counterparts.
Yeah, I think, you know, you and I have both been fortunate to have quality friendships, guys who call you upward. Yeah. I'll take this from Ed Miletti. He always says your environmental game drives your mental game. So in the world that we live in of personal development and leadership development, I think mindset and the mental game gets so much time and attention, but not enough people talk about the environmental game, which is the people, places, and things that show up in your life, you know? And so I would say I've been fortunate. Our family's been blessed to be close to people like you and Thomas and Alan and David who've just called us upward, inspired us, encouraged us. So it's what it's all about, man. Quality relationships, friendships.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I've been really fortunate. So,
and now, I mean, you're growing every year, like Montgomery Companies. You always got a lot of things going on. You're adding people. But I want to ask you, in terms of personal growth, like, who are some of the people that you lean into? Because you do a great job of going and speaking to companies about leadership and growth, but you got to have those people that you lean on too. So who are some of the people that, you know, when you're in, maybe it's a rut or something like that, or you're like, I'm just trying to get to this next level. Like, who are some of the people that you really lean into for that, for you personally?
Yeah, I have a guy that mentors me. His name's Dale Mulliken. I think we've talked about Dale. So he really disciples me. We open the Bible together every other week at a coffee shop. And that's some of the best time that I spend developmenally, you know, might be the best time outside of the time that I spend just one-on-one with Jesus, right? I mean,
Yeah.
from a relational standpoint, Dale's just taught me so much. He's challenged me, encouraged me. So he's been a big asset in my life. Brad Lomenick is another guy that I coach with. And then I'm like you, man, where I have just a lot of far off mentors, people that I learn from through podcasts and conferences and so forth. But John Gordon, John Maxwell, I mean, I just been fortunate. I think from a really young age, I've always had a curious spirit.
Yeah.
So I probably have never broken a record of anything in my life, sports, business, or otherwise. But if there's one record that I might have broken, it would be for questions asked.
Yeah.
Because I have a curious spirit. I want to know how things work, and I want to have a better understanding of life, people, business, leadership. And so, man, those would be at least a few of the people that I've been learning from.
Yeah.
And by the way, you're one of those people that I learned from and I'm challenged by, and you've encouraged me and challenged me. And so, there's a whole list of people, that we've been really fortunate to run with.
Yeah. I mean, it's interesting. Like, I mean, sometimes it's accountability too, right? Like some of those guys, like, I feel like they hold me accountable, but I think it also, and I say that in this way, if I'm doing something or I want to do something and I reach out to, say it's you, and ask a question, you're really good at kind of turning it back on me and really getting me to think about, okay, like I never thought of it that way. And so I think in a way, a lot of people, for me, and maybe for you, when you reach out to them, it might just be in a way to like, okay, maybe I'm going down the right track, and then they'll say, have you thought about this or have you thought about that? But I think there's an accountability there too with when you reach out to people and you ask questions. Would you agree?
I would agree. And I think there's an accountability just in terms of example and presence.
Gotcha.
Like I know for me, if I'm in the presence of certain people, it changes my standard. And I think that's true for most people.
Yeah.
Like there might be a joke that you don't make in one setting that you'd be willing to make in another,
Yeah.
And so I'm revealing my humanness. Like I would love to tell you, no, I always operate the same way in every single environment. But I think there's certain friends that they just call you up, you know? Quick shout out to Caleb Wilson, who's been a lifelong friend of mine. And I remember when I was first dating Ashley, and for those listening who might not know my backstory, Ashley had 2 children. And so Audrey and Claire were 5 and 3 when we met.
Yep.
And I had never been in that environment or that situation before.
Yeah.
So my friends were kind of getting used to the fact that I was in a relationship, and if I continued to pursue that relationship, I was going to become a dad, right? And so I told them I had to leave an event early. I'm like, hey, I got to go home early because Audrey and Claire are going to bed. I want to make sure I see them before they go to bed. And my buddy started to make some jokes about like, oh, Insta dad, you're living the dad life. And then I made some jokes, not like in a negative way. I didn't say anything that was disparaging, but I made light of the fact that I was maybe going to be a dad instead of being a little more serious about that conversation.
Yeah.
So Caleb Wilson, lifelong dear friend, pulled me aside after that conversation. Like literally we were walking out to my car and he's like, hey man, can I have a second with you? And I was like, yeah, man, what's up? He's like, yeah, I just want you to know if you're going to pursue this relationship with Ashley, you're going to have to handle that conversation and those situations different than you just handled it. And he's like, you just really want to make sure you're going to honor those girls and honor Ashley, whether you're in their presence or not.
Yeah.
And so, man, Caleb was a great example of somebody who forced me to change my standard and what I was willing to say or not willing to say. And I think great friends do that.
Yeah.
Like they just call you up just by their presence and their example. It forces you to change how you operate.
Gotcha. So did he, I don't mean to interrupt, but so did he feel like you kind of, was it just like kind of like a off kilter, like you just kind of like, oh yeah.
I probably leaned into it, right? I'm like, oh yeah, Insta dad, because I was in my late 20s and it's just immature, right? So I'm like, yeah, pour water, Insta dad. Like whatever I said, I can't remember the exact comment, but whatever I said wasn't, it wasn't honorable. And I what I should have said is, hey, I'm excited to go see those girls. I got to leave, guys. Like I'm out. Yeah. But instead I kind of went back and forth with the banter. Again, it wasn't disparaging, but it was enough for Caleb to say, a man of character who's going to lead a family doesn't joke like that. Yeah. And again, there's part of me when he said that I was like, wasn't that big of a deal? Right. But looking back, it was a big deal because God had called me into something that was unique and special. And I need to treat it that way in terms of how I communicate. Yeah. And I mean, you do that. We'll talk a little bit later about how you honor your wife, but that's a main thing for you. Like you honor those girls, your son,
your wife, like all that kind of stuff. And I think that's a characteristic that I know I picked up on. And because you do that, it's kind of the same thing. Not that I didn't or don't love my wife or anything like that, but it's just about honoring her in those moments, because being wherever you're at, they're a big part of you being there and doing what you do. So it's important that you do. And that's a great story, because you need people like that around all the time.
Yes, we do, man. So God bless quality friendship and people who are willing to challenge.
Yeah,
you know?
Well, I'm going to go into, so this was great the other night. So, we're in our regional final game, coaching these young women, and in walks 3 of my Bible study brothers. I mean, it's John, Bill, and Doug are their names, and they're all like 65 and older, right? But these guys came in just to watch us play, because I talked about this team so much. And the one thing they said afterwards was they loved how I honored the girls, how I motivated them. And they're like, they can like, you can see the respect in your eyes. But I say that to say this, for those guys to make that trip from Cedar Rapids to Cedar Falls to watch, this high school girls team play, like those are the kind of people too that you need in your life, because they support you either way. And that's just one of those little things in my life, but to see them there was like huge. And so you're right about the people that we have in our lives, that whether they're holding us accountable or there to support, like we all need those kind of people.
Yeah, and I would say like for those 3 guys, like, man, isn't it true that you could pretend to care, but you can't pretend to show up?
Right. Yeah. You
like you either show up or you don't, but like that's giving somebody your time and your presence is a big deal. So again, man, what a blessing to have friends that are willing to do that and make that trek.
Absolutely. So you talk about friends, and I know you just come back from doing an event with John Maxwell, and I know you're great friends with John Gordon as well. So maybe I'm not sure how deep you want to get, but how did that relationship with John Maxwell develop? And then what has it meant to you over time as you have grown, not only as a business person, but as a man?
Yeah, well, there were some key people involved in establishing those friendships. So I'd be remiss if, David Nurse and Thomas Williams helped me get connected to John Gordon, and Chad Johnson helped me get connected to John Maxwell, you know. But from there, it was really about probably just a curious spirit, just asking a lot of questions, but also better understanding how I could add value to them. So for anybody listening, like, I think one of the things that's true about adding value is you want to make the leader's agenda your agenda. Mark Cole taught me that. And so just started thinking about, okay, how could I get behind the things that John Maxwell and John Gordon care about? Because if I want to learn from them and be in their presence, one thing is true is that honor produces access, And so I want to honor them just by making their agenda my agenda, making their problems my problems. It's like, man, how could I serve, add value instead of, man, let me pick your brain, or I have a favor to ask, let me run something past you. So I really don't think it's that complicated. I just think we overcomplicate it sometimes when we're trying to develop relationships with mentors. When the reality is, if you just serve, add value, make the leader's agenda your agenda, it's amazing the friendships that can form.
Absolutely. I mean, and for those who don't know John Maxwell, I mean, he's one of the top speakers in the world, one of the top leadership coaches in the world. I mean, I don't know how many New York bestsellers he's had, but I mean, he's someone that people look to when you're talking about personal growth, leadership development, those kind of things. Like he's one of those guys that is at the top of the list, right?
He's truly, I think he's the GOAT in the leadership space, He's one of the most quoted Americans. But I think it's because, number one, he's a really gifted communicator. But number two, he's been really steadfast and obedient, just in his spiritual discipline, how he lives his life, honors his family. And I think God's blessed his journey. Like, I really believe that. I think, everything that John teaches comes from the Bible. Like, it's biblical principle. And I think he's willing to give God credit. That scripture, like, God opposes the proud, gives favor to the humble. Like, I think God's favor has been on John's journey because he's just been steadfast, man, and growing in his faith and honoring his family,
And John Gordon, for those that may not know, like, he wrote The Energy Bus, Coffee Bean. Like, those are some of the things that I quote, especially when it comes to basketball. Especially like, we don't want any energy vampires or anything like that. But John too, and I've had obviously the pleasure of meeting him and being around him when he's made his way here, and we were in Colorado together as well. But John is one that I see too that is so good at helping people on their journey, or even kind of, and maybe not directly steering them, but like he asked the questions that kind of get us thinking about, things that we hadn't thought about. And
Yep.
he's really good about that. And he's so transparent about his own flaws and how those flaws have allowed him to become the leader that he is today. And so, you know, I know, like, just being around you and him, like, man, like, I just feel like I'm in the presence of, I don't know, like royalty when I talk to him. But Gordon is also a big, I guess a motivator or whatever. I don't know how you would say it, but I know he's someone that you're really close to as well.
You know, I think part of what separates both John Gordon and John Maxwell, is their desire and ability to listen.
Yeah.
You know, because most people look at them and they go, oh, they're great communicators.
Yeah.
And they are great communicators. But what separates them, I believe, is their desire to listen and ask questions. You know that adage, like, knowledge speaks, wisdom listens.
Yeah.
And I was just with John Maxwell at a dinner last week. And there's like 6 or 7 of us at this dinner. So it's probably 2.5 hours. But there's about a 45-minute segment of that 2.5 hours where I noticed, like, John Maxwell didn't say much. He was very engaged, but he just asked questions. He was observing, listening. Yeah. And I'm thinking, man, isn't that interesting? You have one of the most gifted communicators on the planet who was just kind of quiet for like 45 minutes, just wanted to listen and absorb what was happening at the table. And I think John Gordon's a lot the same way, right? It's like he's highly relational. He makes it about others. He asks great questions. He listens well. Knowledge speaks, wisdom listens. And I think those guys are filled with wisdom, which makes them highly relational and others focused. And so I think for both of them, the impact has been this acute focus on other people and a willingness to listen.
Yeah. Well, I know you listen a lot, and you probably listen.
My wife might say otherwise, but
well, I would too. But, you know, you're in this unique process, right? So I talked about, you know, you being the 4th author on, but you're like you're right at the beginning of it. You know, those guys have published, you know, 2-3 books, and here you are.
Rookie,
just finishing your first, you know, just submitted your manuscript. So first question is, who encouraged you to write it, and why did they say you needed to write a book?
You know, what's interesting about that question is there's a lot of people that probably were a part of that response, that are a part of the response. I mean, you being one of them, that have encouraged us along our journey to write a book or create something that helps people. And, you know, but I'll go back to a moment I shared with a guy named Adam Korpstein.
Oh, yeah.
Good buddy of mine. You know Adam.
Yep.
Man, I was going through one of the darkest days of my life, and it's 2015. I'd just been fired from this job that I had that, man, I felt like I was on top of the world, and everything changed sort of overnight. And I'm sitting in my car with Adam, like a few days after I had lost this, and I'm crying. I'm like, man, I lost this job, and this is heavy, and I don't know what I'm going to do next. And I don't know how this is supposed to work together for good.
Right.
And Adam just made this small comment, like, man, one day you're going to write a book about this. And I just remember it felt so far off.
Right.
I'm like, come on, man. And he was right. Like, literally, I'm writing a book, and part of it is that story, you know, the fallout, the fall from grace, some of the mistakes, and just how I got let go. But it's also about relationships. And I tell that story in the book that, man, like, sometimes God's preparation for our life is packaged as pain, and we go through really tough stuff. And so I even go back to, like, you asked that question about who inspired me to write the book.
Right.
Honestly, there's people in that valley with me who just walked beside me, encouraged me well before I even had a clue about writing a book. You know, so so many people, man, it's been a part of my life's journey, you know, and certainly you and John Gordon and Chad Johnson and John Maxwell. I mean, everybody, you know, David Nurse. Yeah. But I really just think back to the good friends that were with me when times weren't so hot, you know?
Yeah. No, those are true friends for sure. And once again, you're giving just so much honor to so many people. I'm trying to be really specific and ask you questions like, who's the guy that did this? Who's the guy that, and you're like, no, like all these people. And I think that's really cool, but it shows just how one success comes from so many different places. And whether or not you consider yourself successful, I do. And I think that's really what we all should seek, you know, the right people in our lives to push us. And you have different people at different levels for different things, whether you want to talk to somebody about marriage, what's going on there, or your business or your book or whatever. Like, it's great having those people that you can connect with. And I think it makes each relationship really special when you can tap into them like that.
That's the truth.
Yeah.
And I think just not forgetting, you've done such a great job of this over the years, is like you never want to forget about who helped you when you didn't deserve it.
Yeah.
Or who gave you a shot when you were inexperienced.
Yeah.
Who loved you in the midst of your issues and challenges. And so I want to be somebody who stays attached to that, who stays connected to the people who helped me over the years. I know that's important to you and Michelle, the whole family. I mean, I think you give great honor to people who've been there and been a part of your journey.
Yeah, no doubt. So can you give us the title of your book?
I can. It will come out midsummer.
Okay.
The title is out. Cat's out of the bag.
Okay.
So it's The Art of Encouragement. Is the title.
All right.
Pretty basic, pretty straightforward, but I think it represents something that's important to me, which is this idea of encouraging others and transferring hope and belief and truth. And so we're excited about it.
I love it. Hope I can get a copy.
I think you can.
Okay. All right.
Maybe more than one.
Awesome. So one thing I have asked everyone else is when you are writing, there is a certain level of vulnerability that you have to have, right? I mean, from a standpoint of whatever you're writing, it's like you're looking inside yourself deep. Were there any things that you learned about yourself through this process of writing?
Yes.
Are you going to share? You give me that look like,
yeah. I wrote about that in the book. Like the words that were penned about the hard times were harder to pen. But it's also where I felt the most purpose in writing the book. Like I had some moments in writing that book where I'm like, man, I feel like I'm living on purpose. I feel like this is God's plan for this book to be out. And I think it's just kind of true of how we live our lives, right? Like it's just, it's so easy to talk about the wins and the good things, harder to talk about the tough stuff. One of my favorite quotes, I feel like I say this almost every day. Craig Rochelle said it. He said, people can be impressed with our strengths. They connect to us through our weakness. Yeah. And so, if you're going to build a book that's for other people, then you better learn to talk about your weakness and the hard stuff, because that's what ultimately creates connection and inspires other people. So, I feel like I was most on purpose penning the words about the hard times.
Yeah. Because my follow-up question will be, what was the toughest thing about it? But obviously you just kind of got into that because it's whenever you write anything about yourself personally, I think sometimes the first thought is, I want to put something out there that everybody's going to like maybe everybody wants to hear. So let's say like I'm gonna write a book. Am I gonna write about the journey, like Chris and Keegan's journey or being their dad or my successes as a basketball player? Like that's really easy. But I know the things that, like you said, connect people is, and we've seen that is the hard times. And we've talked about my wife and I almost getting divorced and going through that kind of stuff. And it's actually gotten to be a little bit easier. It's really easy to talk about now because I feel like that's the most transparent thing that I can say and how I felt in that moment. So I know whenever you talk about anything personal, it's like, do I really want to say it or don't I? And because you're putting it out there for the world now in the book. So
part of that though, so I admire your vulnerability and the way that you and Michelle share. I've shared that with you so many times. That like your best work, I think, comes through WTF. Yeah. Because you have this crazy worth the fight, right? The marriage work that you and Michelle are doing together, because you have this story that so many people can relate to. Right. Like marriage is really tough, but nobody talks about it. And so let's talk about it and let's have enough humility to say, hey, apart from Jesus, like I'm really not much at all. I have no power. I have no wisdom. I think about this scripture. My mentor, Dale Mulliken, and I were just talking about this passage in Matthew where the disciples asked Jesus, who's the greatest in the kingdom of heaven? And if you remember, he grabs a child, and he says, hey, unless you change and become like this child, you will not enter the kingdom of heaven. And what he's really saying is like, unless you give up your own self-righteous power, unless you realize that you're nothing apart from me, like you're not great. You don't have, there's no merit, I think about our 1.5-year-old Mac, like independent of Ashley and I caring for him, he has no power. Like he has to submit to us and he's nothing without us, right? He would not survive. Yeah. And so I think there's a humility that you have, that Michelle had, like just, hey, we're going to honor God. We don't have it figured out. Yeah. I'm nothing without staying connected to the Lord. Yeah. And I think that's God honoring. And I think it's what connects to the world around us. Because I think people sense that like, okay, Kenyon's not out for Kenyon. Michelle's not out for Michelle. They're making it about something bigger. And they know that they're yielding to what is ultimately way bigger than them.
Yeah. And some people may think that. It's so interesting too when you put yourself out there like that. There's always going to be somebody.
For sure there's something that misinterprets.
You know what I mean? Like
for sure.
It's so bad. It's like, no, like really what we're trying to do is we want to be, I wouldn't even say an example, but we want people to know like it's okay to be flawed. We want people to know it's okay to struggle in your marriage. It's okay to even consider like getting divorced, but it's also, there's so much power in sticking together and going through it, because I know for a fact, just talking about this marriage thing, that we've shown our kids that no marriage is perfect. We've shown our kids that we all make mistakes, but we also shown our kids that if you do the work together, like you can come out way better on the other end.
Yes.
And I know that's where Michelle and I are now. We're in this place where it's almost like we're dating again. You know what I mean? Looking forward to spending time. And this goes right into the next question, because I know for a long time, you and Ashley, like you haven't taken that time for the two of you. But recently, I've seen there's been like a lot more times recently where you got like date nights and trips. So how are you guys able to stay connected as you are and do the things that you've done, just the two of you, in the last few months that I've seen?
Well, I answer that question, but I want to go back real quick to something you just shared about the kids, about your kids. I think as parents, for me anyway, it's not natural for like, I don't want my kids to see us struggle, you know? And maybe you said this, I don't know who said, but like, instead of like not allowing our kids in on that, I think part of it is like, man, I want them to see who we go to when we struggle. And they can't see that unless they see us struggle. Yeah. You know, so for them to know like mom and dad are imperfect and they have issues and problems across the board, not just in their marriage, but in their own development, leadership, you know. I think for us, the beautiful thing's been like our kids have watched us struggle and have watched where we go when we struggle. Right. We're not always perfect about that either. Yeah. But I think that's how they start to understand, okay, you know, mom and dad are yielding to the Lord and his plan, you know, giving up their power. So anyway, but you've done a great job of that, I think, in leading your kids toward Christ. Back to your question about us time. So for a long time, the reality is we just couldn't do a lot of that because there was a custody situation that didn't allow us to. That's probably a deeper conversation, but, man, God has been so good and we've just enjoyed that time together. And I think our kids have noticed it too. Like have paid attention to mom and dad are spending more time together, and I think it's made us better parents, you know, to spend that time together. Just really fortunate for it. Yeah.
You know, the thing too is you see it so often is parents grow apart because you're getting into that I guess that part of family where everybody's going to be busy. Obviously, Mac is, he's not in Little League yet, but, and so what we've seen happen so often is you start living everything you do is for your kids and you don't do anything together. And we've seen so many people that once the kids are gone, the marriage dissolves. And so for me, it's great to see that you guys are doing that because that's so important. Like you said, and your kids are noticing it as well. Because you guys come home because you've had that time. Now it's like, okay, now we're energized and we can do whatever we need to do for the kids. And now you're like all in there too. And I think that's just a great thing for the family dynamic, but you just don't see it very often.
Don't you think too, most parents think that the relationship with their kids, I mean, that's what parenting is all about. It's like, I have a great relationship with my kids. When in reality, and I keep bringing up Dale Mulliken, he's just taught me so much. Dale called me on this the other day. He said, the relationship that you have with your children isn't what parenting's all about. Right. Parenting's actually all about the relationship you have with your spouse. It starts there, like honoring your marriage, because your kids are always watching. Yeah. And so I've leaned into that lately. It's like, man, there's a lot of wisdom in that. If you want to be a great parent, man, love your spouse.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I'm going to go back to what you said about setting an example for the kids. one of the things Michelle used to always be about, this is maybe 4 or 5 years ago when we're going through our stuff, is like, we're on our spiritual journey. We're like locked in. We're in our Bible. We're, church, da, da, da. She's like, well, the kids don't want to go, like it's like we're forcing them. I said, well, we got to set an example, right? They see us going, they see us in scripture, they see us having these conversations. You just have to trust that they see what we're doing. So the best thing for me is I was out in Sacramento and I was in one of the back bedrooms and I heard Keegan and Carly talking, and he was like, hey, Carly, can you read this? And so I heard him. He's like, it's this. He's reading a scripture and going through it. I was like, hey, what do you got going on? He's like, oh, I have to lead chapel tomorrow. And I'm like, what? So I sat down, right? I'm like, okay, well, tell me about it. So he gave me I can't even remember what book they were in or whatever. But he's like, what do you think? And we just kind of sat and talked, the three of us, about that. And then same thing with Chris. I think I tried to call him or text him, and I was like, yeah, man, I'm just trying to get a hold of you. He's like, well, I was in chapel, Dad. And so that's what I went back to Michelle. I said, for one, both their girlfriends, Carly and Sophie, are so grounded in their faith. And so they have partnered with women of faith. And now their faith is growing through chapel and the MBA and all that kind of stuff. And I'm like, so they were listening, they were watching. I go, and that's what I talked about beginning. Like, we just want to set an example, and to see that has been unbelievable. And I'll end it with this, but like, Michelle went to go watch Keegan in Miami, and after the game, he saw her. He said, hey, I want to give you this. He got a card in chapel that had some scripture on it that it really touched him, and he gave that to Michelle. And so she was just like, as a mom, she just melted. But I'm saying all this to say this, because your daughter has made she made a very conscious decision about her faith. And so I want you to share that with our audience.
Yeah, man. I'm 3 for 3 now, getting emotional on your show all 3 times. First off, it's the coolest thing to watch your kids grow in their faith. And yeah, we were actually, Ashley and I were on a getaway. We were on a trip, and we knew that Audrey wanted to get baptized, our oldest daughter. Yeah. And we wanted to be her decision, And so she needed to also be able to articulate why she was getting baptized. And so the church has you answer some questions, right, about what baptism means to you and why you want to get baptized. And so she sent us the response, here's what I'm going to send to the church. And the final question is, who do you want to baptize you? So I guess in my mind, I just thought that her mom would be the one to baptize her. They've been through a lot together, and I wasn't a part of Audrey's life until she was 5. Yeah. And that final question, the answer was Daddy, and man, like, just special, really special. Like, it was cool to share that moment with her. Yeah, no, I love it, man. When you posted it, I was like, that's like the coolest thing. But also knowing your story, and knowing your kids, like, I know how that just had to touch you, because you wear your faith on your sleeve. And I know Ashley does too. And to see her, and even at that age, to be able to articulate it, like, that had to be something special too, because she was listening to you guys. She was watching you guys, and she is a product of the love that you guys have in that family. So, man, that's just awesome. Yeah. So God's at work, man. It was really cool. Yeah. Yeah. Cool. Yeah. All right. So let's get away from the emotional stuff. Thank you. Oh, man. Is there anything on the horizon for Montgomery Companies? Because like I said earlier in the show, like, you guys have really been growing and doing some different things. You've partnered with people like Ryan Leaf Ryan Leak and some other great people. Is there anything with Montgomery Companies that you are excited about coming up in 2024? Yeah, we just decided on an event with John Maxwell in Iowa. So for all the Iowa friends listening, will likely be the end of August. We're going to have John Maxwell here in Iowa City, Corville. Yeah. For kind of a 2-day, 2-part event. There'll be an event in Des Moines, and then also here Iowa City, Corville. So John will be speaking, and that'll be fun. And a bunch of our team, including you, will be there, I'm sure, hopefully, if you can make it. We're hoping too that Laura Vandenberg would MC it. And it'd just be a good time of a lot of Iowa friends, strategic partners, being together. So that'll be open to the public. We have an event with John Gordon at Ed Milet in November. It's in Jacksonville. And then we're always doing like retreats and gatherings.
Yeah,
you and I are doing one together next month. It's a hunting event for non-hunters. I'm a non-hunter and I'm hosting a hunting event.
Me neither. I've never fired a gun.
I think there's more people come to the event that don't hunt.
I always joke, okay, this is a totally funny thing. Like, so people in like Mike and Patty Street, you know, I mean, and Chris Drew's my best friend, but they were hunters. They go turkey hunt and stuff like that. So I was telling Mike about this retreat, and I was like, man, do you think, I should probably like shoot a gun? And he goes, oh, you can come out. I was like, but Mike, I've never shot a gun. He looks at me and I go, Mike, just because I'm black and from the hood don't mean that I shot a gun before, right? And he just loses it, man. He's like, well, we can come over some target practice, stuff like that. But no, I'm looking forward to it just for the fellowship and the brotherhood and that kind of thing. But yeah.
Hey, you and I, man, we'll be first timers. Total rookie. I don't know. I don't even know what to expect. Like, we're going to have some pros out there looking for some white-tailed deer. And then you got me and you who don't know anything about.
Yeah.
Like, it'll here's proof that I don't know anything about hunting. I don't even think you can hunt white-tailed deer next month in Iowa. I think we're shooting birds. I don't know what we're shooting, man.
I might shoot a target or some clay pigeons or something. But
we can do that.
Yeah,
that's
that'll
right.
be fun. All right, man. So like with everyone, so I really put a lot of time and energy and thought into the rapid fire questions for you today.
Okay, I'm ready.
So,
come on.
All right.
I'm thinking about this real quick. There's at least one hunter listening to this podcast. Like, these guys are total idiots.
Yeah, right. But I love it. I love having you on because it's always,
good,
it can go downhill really fast with us. All right, here's the first one. You have to pick 4 of your current friends to run pickup basketball. Who are you picking to run with? And why?
Okay. Oh boy, this is tough. Are we trying to win or just have fun? Because that's part of.
Sometimes having fun you can win, but
yeah. Well, let's just say if I'm on the team, we're probably not going to win. So we're having fun with guys that can sort of hoop. So you'd have to be on the team.
Okay. I appreciate that.
I mean, of all my friends, you're probably the best defender of anybody, I've ever known.
My kids will tell you I can't shoot. So
the steals leader at the University of Iowa.
Oh, shoot.
So, all right. So it's me, it's you. I probably have D Nurse, right?
Yeah, he could shoot. Yeah.
Got to have a shooter.
Yeah.
Stand still, and he would encourage everybody. He'd be the rally guy.
Yeah. Not playing defense.
We need somebody tall. Who's tall? Who's the big man?
Oh shoot. Oh gosh. Well, Chad, how about Chad? Is he tall?
Chad Johnson?
Yeah.
He's a college basketball player. He can be on the team. He's not really tall, but he can be on the team. He's a college. So far, 3 of these guys have something in common that one of these guys doesn't. You all played college basketball. I did not. And the 5th would be maybe like a Ken Locke. Ken would he would pray it up for us. NBA chaplain Ken.
Yeah.
So that's a squad, and I don't think we'd win very many games.
Yeah, no.
But we'd have fun.
I think maybe we know he's a really good athlete. It's Thomas, so maybe Thomas be our 6th, but he'd be our enforcer.
Just tackle people.
Yeah. He'd tackle people. All right, 2nd one. All right, Super Bowl, World Series, or NBA Finals? Which one are you going to and why?
That's a great question.
No, here you go. Whichever one you pick, what team do you want to be playing for the championship? Let's do it that way. So.
Okay. I'd probably say Super Bowl only because they had a halftime show and all the fanfare that surrounds it. And we have a guy that we coached that was in the Super Bowl this past year, Trey Smith.
Yeah.
So let's just stay there. We'll say Trey, the Chiefs.
Yeah. Wow.
Trey get his 3rd title. I'm not really a Chiefs fan. I'm a Trey fan. I'm not a Chiefs fan.
Yeah.
But I wanted the Chiefs to win because of that. And then how about we'll go Jaguars. We work with a couple guys.
Okay.
Jacksonville. We're just strong, high character guys.
Yeah.
So we'll say, now that can't really happen because they're both AFC. So that would be an AFC championship game.
Right.
But I'll at least go Super Bowl with either the Chiefs or the Jags playing.
Okay. Gotcha. I like that. I mean, I would pick Super Bowl. I didn't go this year because I'm a San Francisco 49ers fan, so I do want to go and watch them play.
But you got to say NBA Finals, the Blazers and the Kings, right? Well, that's
they're in the
West
same.
Conference.
Yeah, they're in the same conference unless one of them
with
gets
the Blazers
traded.
or the Kings.
Yeah,
right?
Unless one of them gets traded, which you never
trade one of the Celtics, and then it's the Kings, the C's.
Yeah,
Chris. So knowing your luck though, and all the crazy things that have happened to your family.
Yeah,
that's probably going to happen at some point. I mean, Christmas Day, the kids are playing together. I mean, crazy,
it's wild, dude. It's
So
yeah, God is definitely blessed
God is
us.
good.
Yeah. All right. So here's the last one. And I don't know if you thought about this one, but bucket list trip with Ashley.
I think we would go to, now we'll have to be older to have this kind of time, but I think we would like to go to Australia. I think is where we go.
Okay.
Yeah.
Interesting. So Thomas said the same thing. He
Australia.
and Taylor have booked a trip.
They're already going.
Yeah, they're going this year. They kind of had to put it off, but Thomas was talking about he went to Australia by himself. And he said the experience was unbelievable. And so, so that's one of his bucket list trips. And that, they already got it booked and they're going to be going.
Big time.
So,
Down under.
Yeah.
I think about poisonous snakes and spiders. Why would you not want to go there?
Yeah.
Actually, Ashley wants to go there more than I do want to go there.
Yeah.
But I think the flight would be.
See, that's what Michelle said. She's like, it's going to take so long. And Thomas like, oh, no, it doesn't. By the time you get on there, they, be in first class, feed you this, that, the other thing. You wake up and you're there. And I was like, okay, all right.
I love people that think that way.
It's still going to be
no
a long
big deal.
flight.
It's a big deal.
I've gone to China. I've gone to Hong Kong.
Why'd you go to China?
So my first year out of Iowa, I played in a league called the USBL. And then there was the coach from that team. His name was Art Ross. He had to put together a team to go to Hong Kong to play in this huge tournament. It's like we were a month in Hong Kong playing this tournament, and it was a lot of
Did you like
money. Loved the money that I made, but I wasn't too keen on the food. So like we get there and we're like, our host takes us to this restaurant, and I'm just being real. There's a bunch of brothers, and we're like, hey, we want some chicken, right? Chicken and rice. So they bring out this dish, and I have pictures of it. I have to dig it up. But they bring out this dish, and the chicken, it's like some funky red color.
It's not actually chicken.
No, but it still has the head and the feet on it. And it's like staring at us like this. And we're all looking at each other like, who's going to eat that? Like, I mean, there was like no meat on it, but we're like, I think we're going to be eating rice the whole time we're over here too. But Hong Kong, I mean, it was, there's so many people and that kind of thing. But anyways, Crazy. It was a long flight. So the flight was so long, I probably shouldn't be saying this, but the flight was so long that, on the international flights you could smoke and you had free alcohol. Yeah. So I would say all of us drank, passed out, woke up, hangover, and we're still in the air. Dude. Like, no, I'm never going to China again. So, that's
like the Twilight Zone.
Yeah, never want to do that. But
you know what's been bothering me lately is turbulence.
Really?
It never used to bother me.
Really?
In the last few years. Does it bother you?
No, I fall asleep. Like honestly, like if there is turbulence, like I fall asleep. Like it doesn't bug me. It does Michelle a little bit, but it hasn't.
Good for you, man. I need to learn that trick.
I don't know, but hey, this is so much fun.
A lot of ground.
I know. It goes off the rails really fast, but I mean, to me, it's like you're one of the most genuine friends that I have. And because we're so busy, sometimes we haven't been able to spend a lot of time together. But it just feels like there's no time lost, when we're together. So, man, I appreciate you coming on the show again today. Excited for you, and can't wait to read the book and everything like that. And more than anything, man, I'm proud of you. I'm proud of you for the man you are, the husband you are, the father you are. You're a great example. And I know my kids are a little bit older, but dude, I still learn something from you every time we talk. So I appreciate it.
Right back at you, man. Yeah, so much respect. And I was thinking about this on the way here. I'm like, hey, we just get to hang out today.
Yeah,
so
no doubt.
We're recording a podcast, but it's an excuse to get together in the midst of busy schedules, so.
Yeah. I don't know why I have this. I just might as well just, rip up the questions and we just sit here and hang. But,
it's great, man.
But I love it. But thanks for coming on, man. I appreciate it.
Much love, dude. Thanks for having me.
This podcast is sponsored by Storyline Multimedia. Storyline is an Iowa City-based media company that specializes in creating high-quality video, photo, and audio production for local businesses. They also work with college athletes and connect local business with NIL opportunities. They also produce a number of hit podcasts, including this one. So if you're interested in sharing the story of your business with the world, contact them today by visiting StorylineMultimedia.com. And remember, your story matters.